On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, the Toronto Raptors season is very much in run-out-the-clock mode, and apparently the mailbag question askers in the Locked On Raptors Discord are in the exact same mode. We answer the worst of the latest round of mailbag questions on today's show. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, March the 7th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the website that's busted at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can join us over in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. And man, we could use some new blood in there to ask some good questions. Damn it. Of course, today we're going to answer mailbag questions from our lovely, wonderful Discord members who I love very much, who had some fun yesterday when I asked them to send in some silly questions. And boy, oh boy, did they deliver with some dumb ones. We're going to answer some dumb ones, some bad ones, some ones that make my blood boil on today's show. And I very much look forward to it. And if you want to answer questions or want your questions answered on future episodes of the podcast, join the Discord. That's where you get your questions answered. The link is in the description of the podcast. It's free to join. Great little community where apparently I'm choosing to go adversarial mode now, which can be fun. You get to dress me down in there as well. It's a two-way street. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcasts. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Always appreciated when you support the show, however you support the show. Shout out to the handful of folks who tuned into the YouTube show yesterday or listened and responded to me via comments or via message, whatever, saying they got to the end of yesterday's episode about the 41-point beatdown against the Pelicans. Thank you for your listenership, and now please go seek help. Of course, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Go check them out right now. The single best place to get last-minute tickets. Download the Gametime app. Great account. Use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right. Feeling spicy today. The Raptors season is lost. They play the Phoenix Suns tonight. It's a late game. We got to stay up to watch it. It's not fun. And so I'm going to let out some frustrations today by answering some questions that are truly baffling from you, the Locked On Raptors listeners. Thanks to everyone who sent questions in the Discord. You know I love you, even though I'm going to eviscerate your questions today. You're all the best. But let's dive on in, shall we, to today's round of questions. The first question, I think, was sort of like an earnest question from about a week ago from one of our regular Discord users, Stago. And look, fair question if you're asking, someone who cares about this kind of thing. Here's a question from Stago. Where does Gradey Dick go in the 2023 redraft? Redrafts, huh? Already? We're in year one after the draft. Have we not learned anything about how futile and silly this exercise is? Let's dive into it, shall we? Where would Gradey Dick go in a 2023 redraft? The type of question that absolutely makes me seethe, but let's dive in, shall we? Let's go, obviously, Victor Wembanyama. He's going number one. That's not a surprise to anybody. Brandon Miller's staying at number two. As tough as it's been for Scoot Henderson, yeah, it's not been amazing for him this year, but what are we talking about? He is clearly very talented. He's had some moments where he's looked fantastic. He's still going high in this draft. Maybe not top three, although maybe top three. It's not like anyone after him has really sort of grabbed the reins and said, I'm the clear number three best player in this draft in year one, because that's not what happens in year one after drafts. But nonetheless, I think Scoot Henderson still would have a claim to be a top three pick, at worst a top five pick in this draft. It's when you get to 4 and 5 that I think it starts to get interesting as far as guys who Gradey Dick might go ahead of if you redrafted right now. You got Ahmed Thompson and Asar Thompson, 4 and 5 to Houston and Detroit, respectively. Both of these guys are buckets of fun, I should say. I have a lot of fun watching these guys. Asar Thompson in particular has been just a treat. One of the only good things about the Detroit Pistons all season long. It's weird that he doesn't play more, all that stuff. I guess he's played more lately. He's been back into the plans here, but he had some weird moments where he got benched and whatnot. I think this is obviously an eye of the beholder thing with the draft. I think a lot of people go in saying, best player available, get the best guy, get the highest upside, whatever that even means. I think the term best player available when we're talking about 18 and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds is kind of a whack thing to say anyway, because how can we possibly know who the best player available is when these guys don't even have fully developed cerebral cortexes? But I think in most people's estimation, you kind of go for athleticism, you go for upside, and I think most people would probably say Amen Thompson and Asar Thompson have higher quote-unquote upside than Gradey Dick. I would rather most of the time get a guy who I know is going to fit in the NBA and be able to be on the floor when things matter. And I think Gradey Dick right now is a lot closer to being that type of player than either Amen Thompson or Asar Thompson, who, if you add together their three-point shooting percentages, are still below Gradey Dick's 37% from deep. You have 14% from Amen Thompson, 18% from Asar. And so I'll split the difference here and say Gradey Dick goes ahead of at least one of them. Maybe not both, but one of them, because Gradey Dick looks right now like a guy who's going to play in the NBA for a very long time, who's going to be a high-level movement three-point shooter who fits into all kinds of lineups, and his defense is not nearly as bad as it was sort of marketed to be coming out of the draft. I think he's going to fit in just fine and be on the floor in high-leverage moments for this Raptors team at some point in the next 5 to 7 years. And I feel way better about that than either of the Thompson twins, who just simply cannot shoot, which is a limiting factor, especially when you're not like a traditional big man and you have other sort of big man skills to lean on. So I'm going to say Gradey Dick goes at least higher than one of those guys. Then we go to Anthony Black. I'd probably take Gradey Dick ahead of Anthony Black right now. I know he's had a pretty decent low volume 3-point shooting season, but I was never a huge fan of Anthony Black in the draft. I don't think he's got a ton of creation chops, and there's a reason the Magic keep on being linked to finding guards to add to their team, because I don't think you look at Anthony Black and say, yeah, that guy's the answer to their guard woes and creation woes. He's a nice player, nice connector. I'd say Gradey Dick goes ahead of him. Bilal Coulibaly, I think, probably goes ahead of Gradey because he's just like so tantalizing and interesting, and it's been hard to get a gauge on him because he plays for the Washington Wizards. But upside play there, I think that's probably a more bankable upside play than what you would be talking about with the Thompson twins. So I'll say Bilal goes ahead of Gradey Dick. At this point, Jarris Walker, I'd probably take Gradey ahead of Jarris Walker too. Yeah, he's had some flashes in the G League, but now he's kind of buried behind a very deep power forward core in Indiana. And, it's not his fault. It's situational. But I think, because of that, I would probably project Gradey Dick's development to be more meteoric over the next few years than Jarris Walker. So I'd say Gradey Dick, that 3-point shooting, just so bloody valuable. I put him ahead. Taylor Hendricks, interesting guy. Maybe he has offensive skill. Maybe he doesn't at all. And I would take the guy with the clear offensive skill over the guy who maybe doesn't have it at this point when you're talking about the NBA. So I would take Gradey Dick over Taylor Hendricks, I think, as well. So that's 4 guys he's going ahead of in the top 9 already. Cason Wallace probably goes ahead of Gradey Dick. He's playing high leverage minutes on a title contender. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Jed Howard definitely goes behind Gradey Dick at this point. I'm sure the Magic would be thrilled to take Gradey Dick at 11 and not Jed Howard. Of course, they did not do that, and we're very happy about that here in these parts. So, yeah, Gradey Dick goes ahead of Jed Howard. That's 5 guys in the top 11 he goes ahead of. Derek Lively the second. Yeah, he goes ahead of Gradey. That's fine. He's very good. He's kind of a monster. So right now, you have him with 5 guys go ahead of him. He's like 8th overall right now. And then you go into the guys behind him who go ahead of him. I think Jordan Hawkins is a toss-up. I think, you can kind of pick your poison there. I think they're both similar types of players. I think Gradey Dick may be a little bit easier to fit into a system than Jordan Hawkins, who seems to be a little bit gunner-leaning in his tendencies. So I take Gradey over Jordan Hawkins right now. I take Gradey over Kobe Buffkin. He was my guy. I was the little Buffkin boy before the draft, but I would take Gradey ahead of Kobe Buffkin right now. He looks maybe just a little bit slight to hang in the NBA. Things can change, but right now I'd say Gradey over Kobe, and the other Kobe as well, because Gradey Dick is that awesome. Okay, beyond that, Keontae George, yeah, he goes ahead of Gradey Dick, bumping Gradey Dick down to 9th overall. After that, Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Brandon Pajemski are probably the only other guys I would say go ahead of him. So you're down to 11th overall if you're Gradey. I guess some people would say Cam Whitmore. I'm not some people. I think Cam Whitmore is kind of, again, gunner leaning in the way he plays. And while he's been able to do some nice stuff, his emergence for the Rockets has coincided with the Rockets becoming the Rockets again. And so I'm not quite ready to say he goes ahead of Gradey Dick either. So I think that's it. 11th overall. There's not another guy in the back part of the draft. I know Marcus Sasser's had some moments here and there. Maybe you could talk me into him ahead of Gradey Dick. But beyond that, I'm saying Gradey Dick, 11th overall, maybe 12th, depending on how you feel about Sasser and his long-term upside. No one in the second round pops. I like Andre Jackson Jr. just fine. I think Leonard Miller is probably going to have some kind of career with the Wolves, but I'm for sure taking Gradey Dick. 11th overall. And that is it. That is the conclusion of me doing a redraft. It is the last time I will ever do a redraft. So good job, Stago. You got the once in a blue moon answer from me on a question that makes me angry. We'll come back on the other side, and we have some more dumb questions to get to from you, the wonderful listeners. We'll talk about fast food tie-ins with the Toronto Raptors and more brand-related things because the people in the Discord are swayed by commercials and materialism. And that's just the way it is. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second here on the show. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escape. It has class-exclusive Google built-in, which is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone, fiddling around with that. Why won't the Bluetooth work? Why is my wife's phone connected? She's not even near the car. What's happening here? No, Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are all built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. You also have the 2024 Nissan Armada. Will change exactly what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style, tow bigger, and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. We are back sorting through the mailbag, or should I say the waste bin, the questions that came in from you, the lovely listeners that are bad or silly or have obvious answers that I will lay out here today. Again, thank you so much to our lovely Discord users who sent in the questions. I actually love you all, and I hope you know there's a little tongue-in-cheek here today. I shouldn't have to say that out loud, but you never know. People don't take jokes on the internet very well. Either way, love you all. Next question here comes from Loquacious Drew, who has a pair of bangers, quote unquote, here. This one is, if Gary Trent Jr. isn't back on the team next year, who is your team style candidate to replace him? Of course, the Gillette ads that feature one clean-shaven baby face and one bearded fellow have been running for a couple of years now. I think it was OG versus Fred last year. This year, it's Gary Trent Jr. against Gradey Dick. I would assume Gradey Dick sticks with Team Smooth, as I'm not sure he can grow facial hair. And now thinking Gradey Dick with a beard, kind of hilarious to think about. But right now, it would be great if he was Team Style. I don't think that's physically possible for him at the moment. Maybe 5 years from now, we'll see. So Gradey Dick is still on Team Smooth. Team Styled. Raptors guys with beards. They're not like a great facial hair team at the moment. Jakob Poeltl kind of has like the dusty scruff. RJ Barrett clean-shaven, Emmanuel Quickly clean-shaven, Scotty Barnes clean-shaven. If Bruce Brown is around, I mean, that's the easy one with the handlebar mustache. That is your team-styled winner right there. I'm just not sure Bruce Brown is going to be around beyond this year. I'm not sure, like, Kelly Olynyk's weird chin fluff does it for me. Javon Freeman Liberty's kind of an interesting one. He's got a pretty good little beard going. I think he's a sort of a contender here, but I will say that I think it will be Bruce Brown Jr. if he's back. Again, who knows? Maybe they just decline him in the summer. Maybe they opt to move him at the deadline. I think it's less of a foregone conclusion he's not on the team next year than is maybe been assumed so far. We'll see what happens at the draft if they can move him and all that. But yeah, for now, I think I'm probably going with Bruce Brown just for a lack of other options. Again, unless Gradey Dick can grow a beard, become team styled, and then maybe RJ Barrett or Emmanuel Quickly becomes Team Smooth. We'll see. But for right now, I guess there could be like sort of a makeover situation with Jakob Poeltl as well, where Team Style takes his scruff and like tightens it up, chisels it, gets a nice little, nice clean edges, things like that. Maybe that's the answer. Jakob Poeltl cleans up his beard and shoulder hair with a move to team style if Gary Trent Jr. is no longer on the team. I tell you what, the execs at Gillette better be hoping Gary Trent Jr. is back on the team next season. This next one also from Loquacious Drew, who cannot get enough of the commercials that play in between the actual basketball games. Classic NBA fan, not caring about the games and only in it for the stuff on the periphery. This question is, as Scotty is partnered with Subway for their jerk chicken bowl, by the way, disgusting, gross, what would be the best Raptors player food chain dish that you would pair? So this is a tough one because I think with fast food stuff, you want to have visionary moves when you're sort of introducing a new menu item. Like, you're not going to be like, it's the Emmanuel Quickly burger, because people have had burgers before. There's nothing novel about it. At least I'll give Subway and Scotty Barnes credit. A jerk chicken bowl at Subway makes me stop and say, huh? Oh, okay. Go get jerk chicken at any of the other fine establishments you can get jerk chicken in Toronto. But if we're going to take this sort of through line of food that is done extremely well across the city that doesn't really have a fast food presence, I think we're going Darko Rajakovic on this one. And we are finding a way to work cevapi, the beautiful Balkan grilled meat cylinders that are just so delicious, that can be found all over the city of Toronto due to the Balkan influence across town. If we can work that into, like, I don't know, a Mediterranean restaurant of some kind, Osmos, does Osmos take a step into cevapi and have Darko Rajakovic be the front-facing, spokesman for that campaign? I think there's maybe something there. The other thing too is kind of a gimmicky thing. Maybe there's like a fast casual restaurant that is known to take a little bit of time to prepare your order. I think of, for example, like you go into, I don't know, like a Popeyes, for example, where, sometimes it can take a bit to get your order. I'm just so unhealthy in my eating habits, by the way. Sponsor the podcast, any of these fine establishments, but you go into a Popeyes, you order your food, and there's sometimes a bit of a wait there. And look, fair enough. They're frying it fresh. They're taking their time. They're making sure it's all good and fresh out of the fryer for you. But I do think, if you could have an Emmanuel Quickly bucket where it's thrown together quickly, where they just, hey, I want the Quickly bucket, and then you just get a bucket, and all the stuff that's in the little steam trays, they just toss in there indiscriminately. Coleslaw, chicken fingers, shrimps, just into a bucket. You don't know what you're getting. It's a different thing every time, but the Quickly bucket from Popeyes, you walk in, get your food quickly with Emmanuel Quickly there in a big cardboard cutout. I think that's maybe the answer here to Drew's question as well. But I think there might be something to the Darko Rajakovic cevapi. I mean, he's talked about cevapi being his favorite food. And so maybe there's something there with some sort of chain restaurant. There aren't really, I guess the other one you could do is like a Greek restaurant, like Jimmy the Greek or something like that could do a cevapi. Obviously not the same country, clearly, but similar geography, I suppose, Mediterranean in nature. Maybe that's the way. Maybe Osmos, it's too far afield. But yeah, I think some sort of Mediterranean restaurant working in a cevapi handle with Darko being the spokesman, I think would be pretty sweet. And I would certainly eat it, because if you haven't learned from this segment, I'll eat anything except for the Subway jerk chicken bowl promoted by Scotty Barnes. We're going to come back on the other side. Actually, one more quick question here, and then we'll get to a few more on the other side. And this one is from Duncan, who asks, if you had to explain basketball to an extraterrestrial, could you do it in less than 5 words? This could feel like, this feels like a nice question, a good question. It's not a good question because the answer is clear. And I guess it's not basketball I'm explaining here. I'm explaining the NBA in 5 words, not basketball at large. Basketball at large is tall people put ball in. Tall people, ball in hoop. There's 5 words. Perfect. The NBA, tall people make billionaires money. That would be the 5-word summation of the NBA. Does that tell the aliens to leave? Does that make them want to blow the world up? I don't know, but that would be my 5-word description of basketball or of the NBA, that is, to the lovely extraterrestrials coming to visit us, and presumably hang out with their friend Wemby, who they must know, because he doesn't come from this planet. That's it for that question. We'll come back on the other side and get into 3 more questions to close out the show that are less like outwardly dumb. They're pretty decent questions, actually, but I do think a lot of them have pretty obvious answers. So we'll get to that coming up to close out the show in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by our pals over at Gametime, the single best place for you to go and find last-minute tickets for your upcoming events, be it a sporting event, music, comedy, theater events near you, all with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I use Gametime all the time. I've told you I bought tickets to a Seattle Storm game this summer when I was out on the West Coast. I bought tickets literally at the gates of Climate Pledge Arena, bought tickets for $6 on Gametime, and walked in the door. It was awesome. I'm also going to TFC's home opener this weekend. It's going to be rainy and nasty from the looks of it, but that's okay because I paid a very reasonable price on Gametime because of their wonderful deals. And because they have those last minute deals, you can go to buy tickets. Maybe you don't want to sweat out the rain, but if the weather changes and you're a TFC fan who wants to see a really bad soccer team play soccer, you can go and, before the game, if the rain clears up, you can go buy your tickets last minute on Gametime and get yourself an awesome deal. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, rounding out the Sean's heel turn episode of Locked On Raptors. Look, the season's been hard, and it makes me want to strike and lash out at the people who I love most, who are, of course, the Discord users who sent in mailbag questions for today's podcast. We have a couple more basketball-y, Raptors-y questions to close out here. This one from Gabriel, a very well-intentioned question that is a question that drives me kind of nuts because I think it underplays the quality of the Toronto Raptors aesthetic and underplays the color that they should be. Let me explain. The question from Gabriel is, thoughts on the Huskies jersey colors being the Raptors' primary colors? I think red and black are solid colors. Multiple teams have the same colors of the Raptors. I would love blue and white to be the Raptors jersey standard. Dinosaurs, especially Raptors, can be blue. That is true. We have seen the Jurassic World movies. I think one of them is named Blue, if I'm not mistaken. Boy, those movies stink. But Gabriel asked the question, and I'm just going to, like Bismack Biyombo in the 2016 playoffs, slap it down. No. Blue for the Raptors is a non-starter for me. And number one, I think like a lot of people would take offense to this question because I know I'm not one of these people. I'm afflicted with Toronto Maple Leafs fandom. I know a lot of Raptors fans detest the Maple Leafs, which, hey, fair enough. Lots of people do. I detest the Maple Leafs and I like them. But this one is like kind of a no-go for me. The Raptors have always been the distinct Toronto team to me. They've always been separate from the Leafs, and it's because their aesthetic is completely different, and I don't want to see them blended together. You don't want to bring in Leafs juju into your team either. Like the Raptors have won a championship. They've tasted success. The Leafs, not so much. As much as I like the blue and white color scheme, I think the Raptors got to stay distinct. Also, the real answer to what should the Raptors jersey colors be is more purple, please. Like screaming more purple, like I'm screaming for more cowbell. And I've made this point before, but next season is the 30th anniversary season for the Raptors. And if they don't take the opportunity to revert back to the original color scheme and jersey design with the big, sexy dinosaur logo and the very excellent, the scroll font. I don't know what the name of the font is, but the font they used back in the day, if they don't go back to that, someone who does business should probably be fired because you know how much money you would make off of me personally and all of the other sickos who would go out and buy that jersey right away. Like the 90s are cool again. It was the time where, people yearn for now. And, teal, purple, those types of colors that really had a wave back in the 90s are coming back. We're going to see the Jazz go back to their, colorful purple Utah Jazz jerseys, except it'll be cooler people wearing those jerseys now than John Stockton and Karl Malone. So that's nice. We'll have different players to associate with those. Thank God. But yeah, like I think it's pretty much universally agreed that the original Raptors logo and jersey design is one of the better, more standout things in NBA design history. We've gone into this phase of like extreme minimalism with jerseys that kind of sucks. It takes out the fun. And I think, with how hellish the world is, a little bit of color and pop and fun in your uniforms is not a bad thing for anybody. I think, again, 30th season next year. There's going to be plenty of celebration. They did bring back the purples for the 20th season 10 years ago, and then they brought back the whites 5 years ago for the 25th season. So like there's precedent for them bringing back those original jersey designs when the time calls for it. I say at this point, you're now 5 years almost removed from the championship. You can sort of turn the page to the Scotty Barnes era by plopping them into those beautiful purple and whites, and then maybe you have like a third jersey that honors the red and black tradition of the team that won the championship. Frankly, I would love if they went back to the core jersey design that they had during the Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan era. Those jerseys were awesome from about 2015 all the way through 2021, I guess it was, or the end of the bubble season. Tampa was the year they switched things back up. Like, we don't need anything associated with the Tampa and after era of the Raptors. It's a new team. It's a new era. Go back to the original color scheme and then have a third jersey that pays homage to the team that won the championship. I would be fully on board with that. And blue and white, total non-starter. I know that's also being kicked around as like the colors for the WNBA team if they come to Toronto. Wouldn't want to step on those toes if that's the color they want to use. I know that's the team, that the color that the Toronto PWHL team uses as well. And so I think that is, maybe I'm misspeaking there, but either way, blue and white, I like it as a color scheme, but the Raptors, I think, need to be kept distinct from it. And it would be weird in season 30 to go to something they've never had before. I think that would be strange. So that's the declarative correct answer on this question. Gabriel, thank you for sending it, but an absurd question to ask, frankly. Next question here comes from Jeff Exelon, which is a fun one, but also one that has a very clear and obvious answer. So we'll leave off on this one. This one comes from Jeff. The question is, the Raptors players keep getting injured. Which retired or not currently signed anywhere former Raptor do you think could give them 15 useful minutes a night for a few games on a 10-day contract? There's one answer to this question. If you're telling me that Luis Scola, who every time you see him sitting courtside at a FIBA game, looks handsomer and in better shape and more salt and peppery and more spry than ever before, couldn't step into this team in this era of the NBA and not be the exact same player he was for the Raptors during 2015-16 when he started, I think, every game in the regular season and many games into the playoffs before they realized, we can't do this. If you don't think Luis Scola could do that, fit into the Darko Rajakovic system, throw some cool dimes, fill in as the backup five now that Kelly Olynyk has to start for Jakob Poeltl, allow them to carry over their sets from starters to bench, I think you're crazy. I think Luis Scola is going to be playing basically the exact same way he played in that Raptors season until he's roughly 65 years old at the YMCA in Argentina. I am fully convinced of this. That dude does not age. He was just absolutely lighting up FIBA many years after leaving the Raptors. So bring back Luis Scola. He's freshly rested. He's got the legs to go for days, 10 days even. So I'm going Luis Scola as my former Raptors legend who you could go sign and he could fill in capable minutes right now. 100%. That dude is forever. He is eternal. And also, like, I saw Vince Carter dunk in a suit a couple days ago. I feel like he could probably fill in 10 minutes a game as a nice bench role player as well, bring some shooting to the table and hopefully some dunks as well, because boy, oh boy, without OG Anunoby, without Scotty Barnes, without Precious Achiuwa, and with Jordan Nwora missing every dunk he attempts, the Raptors are severely hurting right now for dunk highlights. I love Kelly Olynyk. That dude's not a dunker. RJ Barrett loves to lay it in, not really dunking. Emmanuel Quickly doesn't really dunk. Just give me someone with some dunks, with some ups, who can just, bring some highlights, put the Raptors on court cuts at the very least, because they're not getting on any other highlight shows right now. So yeah, bring back Vince. Have him play in a suit and dress shoes and dunk. I don't care. But that's the other answer, is Vince Carter, who, again, last week I saw dunk on a clip in a suit, which is bloody incredible. That'll do it. Thank you for all your garbage questions, everybody. You're the best. I absolutely love you all. And I hope to do this again and empty the waste bin, empty la poubelle, if you will, going forward. If you can continue to send me some absolute swill in the mailbag chat in the Discord server. If you would like to go and send me questions, again, join the Discord. Link in the description. It's free to join. It's a lovely place to come and hang out. And everyone whose questions I answered today, I adore and love. You're all the very, very best. You are wonderful. You keep the show going, even when the Raptors are not very good or interesting. So thank you for doing all of that and being there. With that, we will leave it off. Thank you so much for hanging. We will talk to you again on Friday. Katie Heindel will be along to talk about Raptors Suns. Hey, the Suns, they've been weird. Maybe this is a game where the Raptors can go and pick up a surprise win. They've performed well against Phoenix in the past. Don't hold your breath. We'll talk about what happened on tomorrow's show with Katie. Hope to see you back here. Thank you as always for hanging out. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye. I'm just not even ever hitting this shot, and I'm so infuriated. Bye.